Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I am Joey Francis, your life, love, and relationship coach. Thank you so much for joining me. Last week, I was talking about how the people you date, and I'm pretty sure it was last week, the people you date, they are also human beings, right? But how do you see yourself? And do you even know yourself? And do you treat yourself the way that you would treat a good friend or a family member that you love? And this is the question that I propose to you. Do you treat yourself with respect? Do you love yourself? And I know it's so cliche to say it, but if you can't love yourself, you can't love anyone else. Facts are facts. Okay. And this is just a fact. Okay. And how well do you know yourself? This is the big one. Because when you listen to my other stuff and all the times that I've told you, like time and time again, that you need to know what you're ready for, that is you understanding yourself and the things you know about yourself. And when I ask you, what are you looking for in another person? Like, what are your deal breakers? What are your must-haves in another person? Again, that comes from you knowing yourself, as well as what are your deal breakers, like must not haves. Again, you knowing yourself and how you want to be treated. Again, you knowing yourself. Nonetheless, how well do you know yourself? Do you take the time to reflect and take stock of the type of person that you are? How you react in certain situations? What makes you angry? I mean, even while being in a relationship or even like with friends, what does somebody say that triggers you, that sets you off? And if you were to go through a situation with your significant other or friends or whatever the case is, and a conversation sets you off, gets you angry, gets you upset, to the point that you're almost lashing out at them, after the fact, do you sit with yourself and say, why did I get so angry? What about that made me angry? Why did that make me angry? Because a lot of us do not do those things. And the funny thing is, I wrote a book, as you know, called Fate is Bullshit, A Logical Guide to Happiness, where I do ask these sorts of questions. And funny enough, I wrote a subsequent book called The Logic of Me, a guided journal for self-discovery, right? And as that book says, a guided journal for self-discovery. Because a lot of us go through life. It's like what we learn, what we are, you know, and tough cookies. This is it. This is who we are. This is who we've become. These are the things that set me off. These are the things that make me laugh. These are the things that make me cry, etc., etc., etc. And very, very few of us, and I think it is becoming more and more as, you know, time goes on and emotional intelligence becomes more important in our daily lives, that we're taking the time to look back and say, hey, who am I? Why did I react this way to this situation? Why did I react that way to that situation? And this even goes further because there are lots of people around us in our lives. And I mean, there's something to be said about living your life extremely authentically, right? You just go out into the world. You are 100% who you are. And despite you having a temper or being extremely emotional and certain things, a lot of things setting you off, and your friends saying to you like, hey, you know, like, yeah, these things set you off. But at the same time, you are 100% you and you always have been, like, yeah, that's a compliment. But then comes the question of growth, and do you want to stay this way, right? Because the only way past this stuff is through reflection, is through growth, is through learning, even self-learning. So again, going back to my guided journal, I see journaling as a therapy. It is a massive therapy for a lot of people, and it helps out with a lot of things, specifically with who we are and reflecting back. And see, the reason that I also pose these questions is because when you look back at relationships, you know, it's easy to point fingers. It failed because of this. It failed because of that person, the other person. It's always the other person's fault. And very, very rarely, well, not very rarely, depending on how self-aware you are, because I have come across a number of people that are very self-aware and have literally said to me like, no, the relationship ended because of me. I'm the one that screwed up. But again, it doesn't happen that often. It's usually someone pointing the finger like, hey, you know, this person screwed up. I am at zero fault. And it's like, well, hold on a second. Obviously it happens, right? Because people cheat and shit like that, and it's zero fault. But even in those situations, could you sit down and ask yourself, like, why did they cheat? Was it because I kept refusing to have sex with them? Was it because, you know, we were growing apart? Is it because that our relationship was becoming stale and they went elsewhere to look for accountability? They went elsewhere looking for someone to validate them. And you know, one thing leads to another, and that's why they ended up cheating. Again, still not your fault, but is it partially like, could you have looked at yourself and said like, hey, wait a minute, you know, if we've done things differently, and hindsight 2020, I know, but if we've done things differently, is it possible that this could have went down a different path, right? And then maybe asking yourself, like, how am I in a relationship? Am I someone that, you know, once I'm with someone, like, that's it, you know, like it gets stale. We just live our lives as like two lumps on a log. I mean, watching other podcasts and, you know, watching TikToks and shorts and all this other thing, I've noticed that apparently the main thing that two people do together, like couples that do together, the main thing that do is just watch TV. Like, that's it. I mean, you know, you can obviously say have sex, but no, it's watching TV. Like, let's be honest, it's watching TV. That's the main thing that two people do together, right? And I mean, is there anything wrong with that? I can't say there is or there isn't, because it's based on the two people. If they're completely happy and in love with each other and it is what it is, then who am I to say you should be doing more? I can't say that, because that's their life. But that's the main thing that two people do together. And is it because of you? Is it because of them? Do you offer any sort of suggestions? Again, this is looking back at your relationships and saying like, hey, wait a minute. Is it my fault that things get dry and stale? Like, am I part of the problem? And then this could even go one step further, because this is not to do with relationships, but a girlfriend of mine, I was literally just talking to her, and I even told her that I was going to say this. You know, she is a very honest human being. Very, very, very honest. And when she starts dating guys and talking to guys and getting to know guys, she has no problem whatsoever at telling them things that she doesn't like. And she speaks for herself. And even though the things that she say are probably true for a number of women, she still speaks for herself and says like, hey, you know what? I don't like this. And you know what? Chances are other women don't like this either. So specifically, talking to a guy, again, just like matched online and just started talking. And within, a short conversation, they start getting into, or she got into, asking about his past and his ex-wife and stuff. And he went on and told her quite a tale. And in this story, he's bad-mouthing his ex-wife a lot. And I mean, I understand that it's like, yeah, okay, people get divorces and separated for a reason. It's not like, you know what, it's, let's just go our separate ways. It's cool. It's cool. Let's just, obviously people do it for a reason, right? But I don't think you should be talking bad about like the mother of your children, especially to an individual who you don't know, especially it being like one of the first few conversations. And so she said it to this guy. She told him straight out. She's like, hey, listen, why are you bad-mouthing the mother of your children? Like, why are you talking bad about your ex-wife? A lot of women don't like it when guys talk bad about their exes. And I agree. Vice versa. I don't like it when women talk bad about their exes either. If they want to tell me a story and tell me how their last relationship went, and, there's specifics like he was verbally abusing me and blah, 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 that's fine. Those are facts. But if it leads into a lot of he's this and he's that and he's this and he's that, well, you're not giving me like the so-called like details of the story. You're just telling me how you feel about it. And because I don't have the details of the story, now it's like to think like, okay, but what did this guy do to set you off this way? Was it a little bit or was it a lot? Do I have to be careful what I say to you because you might flip out, or like, you know what I mean? And there's all these other questions that get asked, but I digress because I'm going way off topic here. So, she says these things to him and they make perfect sense. And again, these are her opinion. But as a human being, somebody that knows themselves, do you listen to this type of criticism and take it with you and then sit back and reflect and say, hey, wait a minute, am I doing this? Is this right? Or, maybe before I start talking about exes and things of that nature, we should actually get to know each other a little bit further before I divulge such information. And even then, telling the story with facts, not feelings. That's up to you. But are you the type of person that if you were in a situation where somebody points out that you are being rude or mean or, divulging too much information or whatever the case is, are you the type of person that's going to take this criticism, go sit back, reflect, and then think about all the other times that you've done this and if this is something that you need to change about yourself? Or are you the person that's going to get extremely defensive and try to stop the conversation in its track, or try to explain yourself, however that is, even though chances are you're going to do a piss poor job of it, but you're going to try to explain yourself and still look like an idiot? Like which one of these scenarios are you going to do? And I can tell you more times than not, you're going to be defensive, just like in the one that I'm talking about, that the guy was defensive with her and snapped and lost his shit. And she's like, listen, we just started talking and this is where this is going. Sorry, buddy, I'm out. Thanks for coming out. I'm out. And then as per another one of my previous episodes, he turned into a massive baby and started name calling her and sending her text messages to the point that she just had to block him on everything. And see, the funny thing is like, she's the type of person, like her specifically, that if a guy was to actually listen to her and then say to her, you know what, I'm really sorry, do you have any suggestions? Because she works in the mental health space. But if a guy was to say to her, like, hey, do you have any suggestions on how I can improve? She'd help them. 100%. She would help them. And very similarly, if I was in her situation, I would too. And in fact, I generally am, just not like that. Like me personally, I get into situations where I ask women, do they know what they want, or do they know what they're ready for? And that usually sometimes leads to a conversation that might be a little too deep and vulnerable for initial conversations, but it happens nonetheless because I can't hold my tongue. And I find out the things that I need to find out, and I find out that they have a hard time trusting, or they have a hard time being vulnerable, and they're like forcing themselves out there because that's what, their friends said, or that's what, she thought is the right thing to do, is to just put herself into the situation. And if she finds a guy, she finds a guy. And if she doesn't, she doesn't. Right. But it's like, how are you going to create a long lasting, intimate relationship with another human being if you have trust issues? How are you going to go forward and grow with someone without being able to trust them? Right. And this happens more times than not, especially nowadays, especially with the audience that I'm talking to. So does, the audience I think I'm talking to, because every single one of us, chances are the ones that are listening to this, every single one of us have been hurt at some point in our lives. And it's like, have we taken the time to reflect, to figure out what about it hurts, to figure out how we can improve and how we can move forward from it? Like, here's another question I have for you. Is there anything that bothers you that is older than 2 years? Like some sort of situation or something that happened that's from past 2 years ago? And if there is, what is it? And why does it bother you? Why, after 2 years of it not really being relevant, does it still bother you? See, this is the type of thing that you need to do, that you need to sit back, that you need to reflect on, to figure out before you move forward in life. Because if you have these things building up, and I mean, this can literally go back all the way to childhood in reality, because a lot of us might have something from our childhoods that still bother us to this day. It may have shaped us to whom we are, but it might still bother us to this day. And it could be a trust thing. It could be a relationship thing. It could be a friendship thing. It could be people with authority thing. Like, it could be a million different things. But unless you take the time to reflect on past relationships in your life and go as deep as you need to, you'll never figure them out. And even as I just asked, like, is there anything that's 2 years old that still bothers you to this day? The funny thing is that most people, like professionals that ask that question, they say like 14 months. Is there anything that's from older than 14 months that still bothers you? And if there is, then you need to figure it out and deal with it and move on from it. I just say 2 years because it's cleaner. And I think that we should go a little bit further back. And granted, if you're someone out there that has never done this before, I honestly would suggest that you just get a paper and a pen and try to go through every somewhat serious relationship you've ever had. Try to figure out the things that made it amazing. Try to remember the things that made it shit. Try to remember why it ended. Try to remember if it was you, and be honest with yourself. Remember, like, if you're doing this, you're the one that's doing it, right? Nobody needs to read this. This is for your own, file, so to speak, on yourself. Read it, go through it, figure shit out. Because by doing this, we can actually, ready for this, learn from our own mistakes. We can learn from our past. Who would have thought? What a novel idea. Learn from the experiences we already have. And not the shit that's on the surface, like specifically with me. I've dated vegans a few times in my life. It doesn't work. It will never, ever, ever work. I am a carnivore. I would literally go on the carnivore. I mean, my diet is almost carnivore diet because the only thing I eat is literally like meat and fruits. And sometimes, I'll divulge and have like, bread and pastas and things like that. But for like 80% of my diet is meat and fruit. I know I keep changing the numbers. 80% of my diet is meat and fruit. I'm going to stick to that one. I don't even remember where I was going with this. Why would I talk about my diet? Jesus, what's wrong with me today? Okay, 80% of my diet is meat and fruit. Oh yeah, vegans. Okay, anyways, dated vegans a couple of times, right? It's never gonna work. And the funny thing is when you meet someone that is vegan, listen, I understand your life choices. Fine, like I'm cool with it, right? Are you cool with me and my life choices? And see, their answer was like, yeah, no, absolutely. Like, you do things for you and I'm doing things for me, right? We don't need to eat off the same plate. It's fine. And I'm like, yeah, it's completely fine. And then you go to dinner with them and I'm getting like a nice, like juicy burger or juicy steak. And then you get the look of death. They like literally look at you like. And for those that are just listening, I was just staring at the camera. They give you the look of death. And you're like, and this is like at a restaurant, like you're eating. And you're thinking to yourself, like, it's like, is everything okay? I'm like, is everything okay? And then you say to them, is everything okay? And they just, that's not good for you. An animal had to die so that you can eat that. And it's like, yeah, generally that's how meat works. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm well aware. And whether it's good for me or not, it's definitely good. It's great for me. In fact, we wouldn't have become humans without meat. Our brains are so energy. I don't even know the word I'm looking for now. Energy hungry, that the only food that could give our brains enough energy to evolve is literally meat, because it's the densest, most highly caloric food there is. So yeah, it's great for me. And essentially, like, then you get into the whole vegan type conversations. Oh, my light's dying. Yeah, my batteries suck, eh? So then you get into like the whole vegan conversations and, things end. And I know within myself, I can never date a vegan. Like, it's just not going to work. It's not going to happen. And that's fine. I don't even remember where I was going with this. But anyways, self-reflection, understanding what works, what doesn't work, and, learning from it and going forward. Because of my past, I know I can't date vegans. You might reflect on your past and come to, similar conclusions about other people. Like maybe you aren't the most religious person in the world. And then you come across those who are extremely devout. And then it's like, hey, they want to do things like go to church together or pray together. And you're like, yeah, I'm not really interested in those things. And maybe it's something that you can't get on board with. If you do that self-reflection and think to yourself, when I dated somebody who was very religious, it didn't work out. And this is why it didn't work out. Well, maybe you'll learn from that. And then the next time somebody very religious comes across, you'll be like, hey, you know what? I don't think this is going to work for us. I like you. I appreciate you. But, I think we're just too different. And that's okay. We're allowed to be different. Like the whole point of these podcasts and me, trying to help you figure shit out and date and all that other stuff is efficiency at the end of the day. And I'm sure I've mentioned it many, many, many times before, is for you to be more efficient when it comes to dating. So the more self-reflection on yourself, you learn things about yourself. Maybe you learn things that you need to change about yourself. You know, I've even had podcasts about attachment styles. And, you know, if you haven't listened to them, go listen to them. Maybe it'll trigger something for you and you can learn something about yourself. But it's funny because even when I'm online, I've asked women, you know, do you know what attachment styles are? And do you know what your attachment style is? I mean, I know mine, it's secure. And they'll literally tell me the truth. And I was even shocked and surprised by it because I've literally had women tell me, they're like, yeah, I'm a little bit of avoidant. And, you know, another one's like, yeah, I'm anxious. Now, for me personally, anxious I can deal with. You know, I'm fine with dealing with anxious people because I am very attentive. Just being in business and learning like the importance of getting back to people in a timely manner. I've trained myself to be that way, regardless if it's friends, regardless if it's for business, regardless if it's a girl that I'm dating. It's just who I am. So somebody that's anxious and needs someone to, you know, be that attentive, I could be. But people that are avoidant, I know I can't deal with. The hot and the cold and the yo-yoing, it's like, it just drives me nuts. And it's like, listen, like I can't do this. Cause like one day it's like everything's fantastic. The next day it's nobody wants to talk to you. And then the day after that, they miss you and they need you. And the day after, you know what I mean? Like I can't play these games of being a yo-yo. And it's funny because you come across someone who is self-aware, that's self-aware enough to say, you know, I am an avoidant. That's my attachment style. But then they do absolutely nothing about it. Like, to me, that's a little bit of a red flag, no? At least if they were to say, like, hey, listen, I'm an avoidant, but I've been working on it. I've been doing things and journaling and you know, looking within myself to try to figure out why I'm an avoidant, because like that's the key. Why are you an avoidant? Like what makes you this way? What happened in your life that you turned this corner? And then you can correct it from there, right? But so few people will actually go through those steps. Like it's easy enough to say, hey, you know what? I'm an avoidant and I'm self-aware enough to know that, but I'm not going to do anything about it. And I'm just going to continue living my life this way. And granted, your life, your choice, you do it your way. But if you're looking for something serious at the end of the day, again, knowing yourself, what do you want? What are you ready for? Then, because you cannot come into something with somebody and say, I want a serious relationship. I want to find my person. But then they ask you, hey, by any chance, you know what your attachment style is? And you're like, yeah, I'm an avoidant. And it's like, okay, this doesn't make sense now because you want to find your person, but you're also an avoidant, which means that you're going to avoid your person. So this is what I mean about looking inside you and figuring this shit out and asking yourself, like, do you want to be, like, who do you want to be? Who do you want to be at the end of the day, right? What type of person do you want to be at the end of the day? And if you're not sure, ask the people that know you. Hey, listen, you know, if there's something that you could change about me, what is it? And see what they say. You don't actually have to take their suggestions literally and then go and do it. That's for you to decide. But it might give you an idea of how people perceive you. It might give you an idea of where you stand. And I mean, I know this is a very deep and philosophical question, like, who are you? But at the end of the day, you want to be your authentic self, right? And when it comes to those who you love, obviously, if you truly love them, you want to do as much as you can for them, right? Regardless if it's friends, family, your partner, significant other, whatever the case is. And sometimes checking in with them and asking them questions like that helps you be a better person for them. And if you love them, that's not a problem because you want to do it for them. just as much as they would want to do it for you. So if you are, in a relationship with someone and you're starting to become a little bit self-aware from listening to my amazing podcasts and realizing that, hey, you know what? Maybe our relationship is getting a little stale. Maybe we do need to revisit things to a certain degree. Then you ask yourself, like, hey, or ask them, sit them down, have a conversation. Like, what could we be doing better? Do we even need to be doing anything better? Are you happy? Am I happy? Are we happy? And if not, what are we not happy about specifically? How can we change this? Because having these conversations is only going to build a stronger foundation for the future. Knowing yourself, having a better idea of whom you are, living authentically is going to put yourself in better relationships in the future. This is what's most important, right? Building the foundation. And if you're unsure of who you are, then there's going to be no foundation built at all, because you might think one thing and the truth is something that's completely different. And then when you start to get to know someone, you might be one person when you meet. You might turn into another person after a month of dating. You might turn into another person after 2 months of dating. You might turn into a different person after 3 months of dating, because you're just unsure of who you are. And like I said at the beginning, if you don't love yourself, then how can you love anybody else? If you can't be with yourself, how can you expect anyone to be with you? And the thing is, if you can't be with yourself, maybe you should sit down and think about why. What about yourself bothers you? What would you like to change? And even when it comes to change, because I know everybody hates change, but the funny thing is like, as human beings, our existence is literally based on growth and change. And even though we hate it, and sometimes we do it like kicking and screaming, if you to sit with yourself and figure this stuff out, and you find the things that you want to change, then change them. And remember that you don't need to, like, for instance, I look at myself in the mirror. I think I'm a little soft. I think I need to like work out, maybe eat better, whatever the case is. And then you run, join a gym, get a meal plan, and you just like head first into all this shit. You can do it that way, but maybe that way is not sustainable. Maybe you should think like, hey, you know what? I have an extra 20 minutes a day, or I can make 20 minutes a day that I can go for a walk, that I can, do a workout at home of sorts, like some calisthenics, even if it's like push-ups and sit-ups and things of that nature. Baby steps. And then you build a routine, and then you build upon that, right? And then you can say, hey, you know what? I've been working out steady. Maybe I can change my diet a little bit. Maybe I can start eating a little bit healthier. And then one foot in front of the other to invoke that change that you want within yourself. But again, it all starts with self-reflection. It all starts with you sitting down, figuring out who you are, figuring out who you want to be. And if those two things are different, then what's the path from one to the other? And if you need help with that, I have a great resource for you. It's my book, The Logic of Me, a guided journal to self-discovery, written by the one and only Joey Francis. And you can find that book at joeyfrancis.com. That's JOEYFRANCESS.com. You click on the book, it will take you to an Amazon link. And there, I think it'll take you even to your prospective country Amazon link, if I built it correctly. And there you can buy that book. And if you are truly honest with yourself and answer the questions in that book, I guarantee you, you will learn something about yourself. You will uncover something that you may have forgotten, and you will solve maybe some issues that you might have. And also, if you want to send me a message with some podcast ideas, or maybe, I don't know, comments, questions, I love it when people reach out, even those who just want to like rebuttal things that I say, because I love having like these types of conversations with people. You can message me on that site. That's joyfrancis.com. A little place there where you can write out an email. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this week. Thank you again so much for listening. What do I want to say? What are my parting messages for you this time? Self-reflection. Take the time, self-reflect. Be the person that you want to be. Until next time.